Hey everybody, welcome back. Today my guest is Dr. Michael DiTolla, who I got to meet as part of my time in the CAD/CAM world. And I'd heard about him as the dentist who practiced in the largest dental lab in the country, Glidewell. But I also got to see him in person, meet him, and learn about him as an awesome lecturer, dental educator, writer, comedian, and one of the good guys in dentistry. And I got to spend some time with him recently in his practice as I helped his crew out with getting more out of their practice management software. But I asked him to be part of this series because I wanted to pick his brain on some of these questions. So, Michael, it's good to see you.
Andre, it's great to be here. And I can't tell you, it was so funny because my staff had all followed your tips. We're a Patterson office, we have EagleSoft. And so they had been following your stuff anyway. And the day I said, should we have Andre come out for a day? They're like, we can do that. And it was amazing. And it was like, a celebrity came to town basically when you showed up. And I haven't seen my staff that geeked up for anything. We just got back from 3 days in Las Vegas and they were excited for that too. But so your excitement level was the same as 3 days at the Bellagio in Las Vegas. That's how good it was to have you out at the office, and the staff learned a ton with your EagleSoft mastery. So thank you for doing that.
That's good. Yeah. And the last time I saw you speak, we were in Orlando, and there was a big event that Patterson had done, and that was the last time I got to see you speak. And I mean, yeah, I think that was before the last time I went to one of the Cirque events. But I got to be a big fan of yours, and like that, like I said, that's why I wanted to bring you into this. I got a chance to see a lot of the people who I've interviewed during this series as speakers on the stage, that kind of stuff. But I always wanted to ask questions of a lot of my dental friends. And when this project came up, I said, here's a list of people I want to interview. And I'm glad we got a chance to finally do this. So I'm going to start peppering you with some questions. And here's question number one. Um, think about a fork of the road that you've reached, and I know, just like most of us, you've hit a few of them, and I've known you along the way. So compare yourself to the person you were at one of those forks, and tell me about one of the forks along the road.
Yeah, there's been a lot, Andre. It's funny you mentioned that because I'm starting to give a talk in dentistry on mental health where I share kind of my story. And so one of those forks is being honest now with the audience and telling them about this dissociative mental disorder that I've had since I was 13 years old. So the biggest fork and the most meaningful fork I think for me is May 28th of 2021 last year. And that is the day that I embarked upon a new type of therapy. And so I'd been doing talk therapy probably for 8 or 10 years. And I just ran into a wall and I wasn't getting anywhere and I still wasn't happy. I mean, I acted happy, but I still wasn't happy. And on May 28th, 2021, I kind of took a leap of faith and started doing something that I'd been seen done with other PTSD sufferers. I had just been diagnosed with it 2 years before, and it took me 2 years to believe I actually had it. But I saw Iraq war veterans coming back and using MDMA,
Mhm.
assisted therapy, or ecstasy as it's called on the street. And I was always terrified of street drugs because it was street drugs that's I thought started causing my dissociative panic attacks when I was 13 years old. And so I was terrified of street drugs always. And I took a leap of faith on May 28th, 2021, and started doing this essentially psychedelic assisted psychotherapy where you do these journeys and there's a lot of work going into it. Then you have the experience itself. And then there's a lot of integration of what happened during that experience into your life. And actually, you caught me at a really interesting time because I'm doing another one of those this Saturday. And so I'm in this really energetically like open space. I've been crying 6 or 7 times a day for the last few days. And as a result of that fork in the road, I decided that I wanted to spend, I'm 57 years old. I decided I wanted to spend the last third of my life happier than I spent the first 2/3 of my life. And so part of my story in my mental health lecture that I'm giving to dental professionals is sharing all this about the therapy. And you'd be shocked, Andre, or maybe you wouldn't, how many dentists come up afterwards and tell me about their anxiety disorders and their panic attacks. It was just on the ADA News, the cover of the ADA News last week, that it's up. Anxiety related disorders in dentists is up 300% from the last time they did the survey. So for me, it was trying to be brave, trying to, trust my new therapist where we were going to use this medicine, the MDMA, to kind of go through and do this therapy. And it's just been a game changer for me, Andre. I mean, it's been absolutely amazing. So that's the big fork, May 28th, 2021.
And I'll tell you, I'm proud of you. And a big part of my life has always been as a coach for dental offices, and a lot of it has to do with doctors who've brought me in and spending time with them, coaching with them, but also, I always look at coaching and consulting as two separate things. So coaching the doctors, but consulting with the staff, and working one on one with doctors. And I can't tell you how many sessions I've been in with a doctor. In my background, my mom's a psychologist, so I come from somebody who's always on the couch, yeah. So I spend a lot of time working with offices like that. And when I hear that somebody has made that step into therapy, I'm just thrilled that you're looking to make yourself a better person. So I love that. So I'm glad to hear that about you. So let's talk about question number 2, because that may also guide where we're going with this. So question number 2 is, what is a book that you've read that everyone should be reading, and maybe reading over and over again?
Well, I don't know if everybody should be reading it. I mean, it wouldn't hurt, but it's The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, and it says brain, mind, and body in the healing of trauma, and it's really all about how. Like, I can't remember much from the first 8 years of my life. I mean, I just don't have a lot of memories. That's not good. Most people can remember lots of things. And, so the trauma has started to kind of surface as I've done this therapy, and the events kind of come back and you're able to reprocess it and look at it in a different way. And it doesn't have to give you that flight, fright, or freeze response at that point like it did anymore. And The Body Keeps the Score is really all about how your mind will build walls around these memories. And trauma, it's okay. So somebody was in Afghanistan and had a leg blown off, and somebody, was held up at night point, and somebody else was kidnapped, and somebody else was sexually assaulted. I mean, it's all, we all experience trauma to some degree. It just kind of depends the environment you're in and how your brain happens to process it. But it controls a lot of our reactions, even as adults, things where we fly off the handle, anger, or we withdraw, and things that we do, and we're not sure why we do it. And so this book has been absolutely instrumental, and he's all about using yoga to reconnect to your body. And this is not a brain thing. Your brain gets to step to the side, for a couple of minutes while because your body keeps the score. Your brain can lie to you and tell you everything's fine, but the body always knows on a deep level. And so next weekend, so I'm doing that journey this weekend, and then next weekend I'm actually attending a 3-day yoga and counseling, like a retreat at Kripalu with Bessel van der Kolk, and I'm thrilled to be able to go out there and hear from him, because trauma is at the core of everything that's plagued me through my life, namely not being happy and addiction issues and things like that.
That's awesome. And, I a lot of times the books that we've talked about through this series, sometimes the book in total is great for the person, but maybe there's a chapter that somebody who is part of your life needs to read, so they understand the process you're going through too. One of the big books that is a part of what I do on a daily basis is the E-Myth. And I've said that, as an entrepreneur, everybody should read the E-Myth, but as a entrepreneur, they should make everybody read chapter 6 of the E-Myth. So all their staff members, everybody else should read one chapter of the book, so they understand the process they're going through. So I love that, and so I'll make a reference to the book. Everybody will have the author in the notes here too. So I love that. So let's go to question number 3, which is, give me 1 or 2 of your favorite quotes.
Oh, okay. Well, one of them's from But Body Keeps the Score, and it says, as long as you keep secrets and suppress information, you are fundamentally at war with yourself. The critical issue is allowing yourself to know what you know. This takes an enormous amount of courage, and you know what you know. So like in any of the traumas that happen, and actually I have family members who witnessed the trauma, some of them, and have told me about it, and I still don't remember it, but I'm getting closer to those memories. And so whatever happens, to somebody that they traumatically, whether they remember it or not, it gets recorded onto your hard drive. I mean, your eyes are working and you see it, your brain might
Mhm.
keep it. So it goes in with one of my other favorite quotes that we're only as sick as our secrets. And so part of me sharing my mental illness struggles with dental audiences, it not only is helping them, to people reaching out on Facebook and emailing me saying, "Oh my God, thank you. I'm watching this movie you recommended about MDMA therapy, or I'm going to read that book." But for me as well, it's an unburdening, and just hearing that other people are feeling the same way is just this amazing feeling that helps with kind of self-love and self-acceptance. And I guess one of my other favorite quotes would be from Lao Tzu, the Chinese philosopher and poet, who wrote, "Truly, the greatest gift you have to give is that of your own self transformation." And so, to me, this self transformation journey that I started last May, and then sharing that with the people around me, is, I hope, some sort of small gift to the world, being able to tell the story that only I can tell. And I believe everybody has a story that only they can tell, and they should, search it out and share it with their children and their patients or whatever it might be. And I've really come to believe, Andre, that the more you work on your own mental health and wellness, the better clinically you can be as a dentist too. Because
Yeah.
I just don't think you can really get in there and take care of all the details and have the passion, the patience and the empathy to do these really difficult cases on people who aren't seeming to cooperate unless your needs are being met and you feel like you're in a position to be able to give that much. And so it's interesting to me, as somebody who practiced in Gladwell and looked at a lot of preps and impressions, some great, some not so great. I'm really beginning to think that the dentists who do chronically struggle doing good dentistry, that there is a mental health tie into all that.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And once you start to see your prep on a 24-inch screen, 25-inch screen, that's when and can you accept that in order to
Yes.
change? That makes a big difference. So I
Yeah.
love that. Awesome. So now let's go into some of these rapid fire easy questions, which are what's the high tech thing has to have a plug or a battery that you can't live without, and why?
Oh, it's probably ScreenFlow. It's either my Panasonic GH5 camera that I'm on right now, and hopefully this is a very good looking image. And I also have $1,000 light, an aperture light, because I want to project the best like image that I can. I mean, it's not just vanity. It's like showing who's ever putting on, whether it's a webinar or whatever, that I'm doing the best. So I'm super in love with this setup that came around because of COVID, when all of a sudden all the lectures switched. But also a program called ScreenFlow that I use that allows me to record from this main camera that I'm looking into now. I can also record my desktop. I can also have a top-down camera and record that as well for if I have models in my hand and I'm showing a crown and bridge case. And it's just simple editing software that allows me to record multiple sources at the same time and then be able to create something for a customer or myself that I'm going to put out there. So I love ScreenFlow. I should probably learn Final Cut Pro, but ScreenFlow makes it simple. It does automatic keying of green screens and stuff like that, and I love it.
Awesome. That sounds like I did look into that one. I have that on my list of things to do. So that's a good one. Okay, so let's unplug and let's talk about what's the low tech thing. Can't have a plug, can't have a battery that you can't live without.
Oh, shoot. The one that I was going to mention has a plug. It's a $28 breakfast sandwich maker from Hamilton Beach. But you know what?
That's a good one.
No, yeah, well, that's a good one. I swear, everybody needs to own this. These are the most amazing. I made a breakfast sandwich yesterday for my hygienist because she had cleaned my teeth the day before and her stomach was like grumbling. She's like, "Oh, I don't have breakfast. I just eat coffee." So I brought her one. She was like, "This is amazing. How'd you do it?" But it's simple in that dumb little thing. But I started teaching myself acoustic guitar during the pandemic because I was going to rewrite a song that I love with dental lyrics for Voices of Dentistry. And then I ended up giving this much more serious mental health talk that had humor in it too. But I was going to go on stage and play and sing this song. And it's been really, as somebody who grew up playing the drums where it doesn't sound like music, the ability to create notes and chords now still feels like magic to me. And so 20, 25, 30 minutes a night, I practice with, a Radiohead song and a Pink Floyd song and an Oasis song are the three that I'm working on now. And it's something about the dexterity of having to move it. It reminds me of dentistry a little bit, of having to teach your fingers these new patterns. I think it helps keep your brain a little bit sharp too. And just as somebody who's been obsessed with music since I was very young and could only make percussive sounds on drums, the ability to create music that I can sing along with is like this amazing, wonderful gift. And again, on a body level, it's just like hearing the vibrations and feeling the vibrations of the string. So it's kind of cerebral, but it's really more of a body activity than it is. So I find a real meditative kind of nature to learning to play acoustic guitar.
Funny. I've always been fascinated with guitars. My pre-dental life, I mean, I was in retail and I worked in a record store, back when we had record
Yeah.
stores. And I originally worked, when I first started working there, I was in charge of all of the electronics, which at the time were, stereos, individual hi-fi pieces, but also the entire music department. So I was the guy who was in charge of selling we had a whole, I don't know what the music stores now are, but I was in charge of selling all of the guitars. And we sold really high-end BC Rich and Martins and stuff like that. And I was always so fascinated with the people who came in and were able to pick these things up, this electronic thing, and be able to make something of it. I mean, most of them were playing Stairway to Heaven at the time. That was the riff everyone wanted to play, but it was just so fascinating. But same thing when I got into dentistry, seeing somebody create something out of whole cloth. I mean, it was just also the same thing I dealt with there. So great low tech choices there. So
Yeah, and my advice would be, yeah, I wish I would have learned to play guitar when I was 10 or 12 years old, because it's much easier in the patience. And, I have an injured pinky finger that never wants to cooperate, and learning bar chords is really difficult. But just because you didn't learn as a kid, there's something fun, I think, about as an adult just doing it for yourself. And so, we tend to focus a lot on things like, oh, I need to exercise more, or I need to do this or that more. But for me, guitar, as frustrating as it is, in the beginning, if you just be okay with that and just be okay with the process and not expect to be able to, play an F chord or bar chords within the first 2 months, I really think that it's a good way for those of us in our mid to upper 50s to be able to stay sharp and kind of, it's just a great, it's a great analogy for me, because this spiritual journey that I started last year, it's very difficult to see the steps. And it's like, am I making any progress at all? You can't tell sometimes because it's just happening so slowly on a daily basis. But I have a lot of faith that you can definitely tell on the guitar when you're making steps. All of a sudden you can play like a B minor bar chord that you couldn't play before. And then all of a sudden you can play it predictably. And then all of a sudden you can play it after playing a G chord. And it's like, oh, this is a good analogy for probably what's happening in my spiritual growth too. It's just much easier to see on the guitar.
awesome. Awesome. So let's go back to question 6, which is go back to that fork in the road. And what advice would you have given the Michael back at the fork?
Um, well, yeah, I would have said, hey, we could have done this 20 years ago. We didn't have to suffer for this long. It's not a badge of honor to suffer like that. It's not, I think men especially have been kind of shamed in society for even talking about their feelings, let alone going to therapy. And dentistry is a difficult profession. So I would argue it's easier to work at Guitar Center, to your point, or Licorice Pizza, the old record stores from the good old days. I mean, not to put down those, but I think dentistry is a difficult profession that asks a lot of us. And I think old Michael would have, it just waiting that long was just kind of, I mean, it happens when it happens, but there's no reason not to start working towards, loving and accepting yourself more and being able to do that with others as well. There's no right time to start. You don't need to wait for rock bottom or some crisis or, in fact, even if I know that not everybody's got like traumatic stuff that happened to them as a child, like I did, but still, I think anybody who goes into therapy and is willing to talk to, somebody who's not trying to take who's not a friend, a trained professional who can give you feedback, and maybe just start with stuff like, when my kids do this, it makes me feel like this. Am I being manipulated? Am I being this or this? What boundaries should I set for this? I have a hard time saying no to my staff at work. I want to do a couple shots of tequila before I have to fire somebody. What's going on here, and what can I do? And just start with where you're stuck in life, whether it's your practice or communicating with your spouse or your team or whatever it might be. And those are exactly the kind of things that you can start solving in therapy, which are very practical skills that'll just make your day-to-day life easier, but they also kind of uncover the deep-held core beliefs underneath it that cause you to react this way. And it's always, why didn't I do this earlier? Why didn't I do this earlier?
I agree. Yeah. So I didn't prepare you for this question, but this is an easy one. So my last question for you is, Michael is who he is today because of hard work or luck?
Um, well, I mean, I would argue you can't pick one over the other. And I'd have to throw trauma in there too. It's been a slow process of me accepting. One of my favorite comedians, Neil Brennan, always says that a good brain and bad parenting is the magic combination for comedy. You gotta have both of those. So the good brain, you get lucky and you get born with. So I just posted this meeting for 3 days, and I was better than I was at any of like the previous meetings that you saw. And I don't know why. I'm a little older, but I was born with an ability to stand on stage and think on my feet and create stuff. And and I don't believe that would be there without the trauma. But I'm not going to so I put work in, obviously, to prepare for going up there and doing this stuff and writing it and testing it. But I'm going to say more luck, from the standpoint that I was just born with a brain that happens to do these things. It's, the other side of that coin is having to do this trauma work to be happy, or try to be happy. But I feel like, and I've done hard work, but I really think the luck of, the brain I was born with, and the luck of being immersed in that trauma, and this whole process of me learning to become proud of my scars, that they're a testament of what I've gone through, and created this. So oftentimes I think to myself, would I trade places with somebody else who doesn't have all this trauma and doesn't have to do all this work, but can't stand on stage and be funny, or interview Damon John and have it be funny and have it be good, and everybody say that's the best interview I've seen? No, I wouldn't. I don't want to trade that. I'm willing to take all that tough stuff with the stuff that I was kind of born with. Because speaking is the one God-given ability that I've really been able to identify. God knows getting good at clinical dentistry took a lot longer than that did. So I'm going to go with luck, and I bet everyone else goes with hard work. I don't know, maybe they don't, but I'm going to go with luck, just as kind of gratitude for where I've ended up and kind of the skill set that I was born with, and I think I've tried to make the most of, but I did not create it from nothing. So I'll go with luck.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad we got a chance to do this. And when I originally approached you with the idea of coming on and doing this, and we talked about sort of what's been happening in your life, I'm glad we got a chance to finally do this and get it out there. So, best of luck, and can't wait to hear how things go in the next couple of weeks for you. And I know it's exciting stuff for you, and I'm excited to hear about it.
Thanks, Andre. Those are the best questions I've ever been asked in an interview. So thank you for taking the time to think of those.
Thanks, sir. And I will see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.